Orcish Bowmasters? Never heard of it. I don't know why it would be a problem. Why are we talking about Orcish Bowmasters? You Orcish Bowmasters. What? Hello folks, Phil Gallagher, aka ThrabenU here for another Legacy video, and Brian has given me a Dealer's Choice donation deck list, and since it is release week of Tarkir Dragonstorm, that means we need to be testing some new sweet cards. And Surrak Elusive Hunter is absolutely my jam. This is an uncounterable green card, which gets big ups from me, given some of the other things that we have already been playing on this channel. It has a 4/3 trampling stat line, which is pretty good. And whenever a creature you control or a creature spell you control becomes the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, you draw a card. This is big game. So this can't get countered, so it's getting into play. And then this ability is live, meaning that if your opponent targets it with the removal spell afterwards, it is going to immediately replace itself. And this says creature you control or creature spell you control becomes the target of a spell or ability. So your stuff that's on the stack, that is also going to draw you cards. So this is really sweet. And immediately my brain went down the path of Ancient Tomb goes Burr. But as you can see on screen, that's not where I ended up when I started actually putting the deck list together for this video. I ended up on Mana Dorks instead because I thought the Exalted ability would go very well with the trample that we are seeing here. And I also just wanted to be playing a bunch of mid-range style cards, and having consistent mana that wasn't going to hurt me felt important. So we're taking some things we've learned from Dino Stompy and from, I think I called it Exalted Stompy a while back, and shoving them together into one deck list. So we have some threats that are hard to answer, and threats that can't be countered, threats that have some degree of protection, or even some threats that give us initiative. We are going to have some things that we can sink mana into when we get into the late game, so all of the mana from our Mana Dorks are not necessarily going to be wasted, and we have a handful of annoying cards here. And my question is, can I get away with not playing something like Chalice of the Void or Trinisphere in the main deck, and instead start game one with Dismembers, and then pivot into a hate piece of my choice for the post-sideboard games? We're gonna try, and experiences will vary wildly depending on what exactly we get paired against. I'm just not super excited to be running traditional hate pieces in Legacy right now. Show and Tell dodges them largely. Like, it doesn't super care about Trinisphere, it doesn't super care about Chalice. That doesn't stop it from winning the game. And a lot of the things like Oops are just gonna go under your hate pieces in a lot of games anyway. So we're going to try to beat the fair stuff, and we'll do our best versus the combo decks. To fill the spots where hate pieces might otherwise be, we're going to be playing Malevolent Rumble. Malevolent Rumble can ramp us into the larger threats that we see here, or otherwise allow us to play around Daze, or get some selection from this deck that we otherwise might be looking for from cards like Once Upon a Time. So with that being said, let's jump into it here. Folks, if you find you need any of these sweet new cards, please check out my sponsor, TOAmagic.com. You'll always get free shipping from them. You can expedite those cards if you need them in a hurry because you've got a tournament around the time of release. If you're going to an in-person event, I highly recommend selling your cards to them. If you are looking to sell cards, I have found that their prices are good and their customer service is great. Promo code ThrabenU will save you 5% on your order on anything you do on their website. So with that being said, let's hop into it. Full disclosure, I'm a little snotty today. Again, North Carolina trees. We're at war here. So if any coughing or sneezing or anything comes through, my bad. Anyway, let's battle. This opening hand seems sweet. Let's adjust this guy a little bit. So I have a turn 1 Mana Dork and potentially a turn 2 Hate Bear or a turn 2 Surrak, and we can just kind of get Surrak cooking ASAP. So I like this. My opponent tanked a little while on their mulligan decision, but ultimately kept their hand. I don't know if that means that they have a weird hand or, you know, if they were getting a pizza out of the oven in between rounds or whatever. Ancient Tomb Gamer. Chalice of the Void. How does this read? Comes the target of a spell or ability. This is not gonna target and let me draw a card off a 1-drop. It's a cool thought though. Let's prepare to smash. Electro Oof potentially has some text in this matchup. There's a bunch of things that Ancient Tomb Chalice of the Void can be. Just statistically speaking, the most likely one is a Moon Stompy deck of some kind, in which case Game 1 Collector Oof can shut off the One Ring and Chrome Mox and stuff like that. But I think I just want to get Surrak in play as quickly as possible. If my... Oh, shit, I'm wrong. It's Eldrazi. Do I outclock Eldrazi Linebreaker? I don't know that I do. This is a problematic card. I think I'm likely to do cool things with a Malevolent Rumble. I think I just trade here. I got absolutely skunked by Eldrazi Linebreaker in the last video that I recorded. So my opponent used a Spirit Guide rather than take 3 from their lands there. They have actual factual red in their mana base. I mean, I'm going to do this. Pick up a forest. I've made my land drop for turn already. This is attacking for 4 with Vigilance. This doesn't immediately eat it to another Eldrazi Linebreaker. Broadside. Okay, so we are going to play the initiative game then. There will be back and forth here. That's a shame. My opponent does have a basic mountain to get. Sure. I wonder if they're thinking about throwing their Chalice of the Void. They don't. First thing I'm going to do is send in here. I've got Exalted. Trigger. I'm going to go to Forge. I'm going to make this so thick. I'm fine with doing a Malevolent Rumble here. Picking up Keen-Eyed Curator is fine. So I will go ahead and drop Keen-Eyed Curator. And I think this is worth it as well. I am not going to tap this for mana. At least not yet. I might use it for mana on my opponent's turn to start working on Keen-Eyed Curator. So I have instant, sorcery, land, and creature that I can eat. So this can be a 7-power creature next turn. A Pyrogoyf, which is pretty big. Taking out the Keen-Eyed Curator, I am not going to get... Well, can I eat stuff out of the graveyard to change this? So I can eat sorcery and land to shrink that to a 2. And then Broadside could throw Chalice? Broadside can throw Chalice anyway. Yeah, I think I'm into this. Let's eat sorcery. Now it is a 3. Let's eat land. Now it is a 2. So we fizzle this trigger. Broadside can still finish it off, but it needs to do so on attack here before I get a chance to block, and it will do so. So my opponent will deal me 2, and then take the initiative. They can forge up their Pyrogoyf if they would like. That makes a 5/6 to wall my 5/6, but I have Exalted. Oh, that's also nice. So when I play this, my opponent loses 5 life to trap. But I can do that post-combat to force the chump block with Pyrogoyf. If my opponent had 1 less life, then swinging in with Collector Oof as well would probably be smart. So send in Exalted trigger. Opponent takes the obligatory block. Pyrogoyf dies. Second main phase. I do this anyway. Trap my opponent. Put them to 3. Drop a land so I can surveil and pass the turn with 4 blockers available for Broadside, so that my opponent does not get to trap me. And that's good enough for the concession from my opponent. Their deck is probably highly aggressive and a little bit scary. I am probably not really sideboarding here. Like, I am very much gunning for blue decks with how I've constructed this sideboard. Outland Liberator has some text where I can destroy mana rocks from my opponent, and that's okay. I might board it in. Hex Drinker is protection from instants specifically, so it's not going to dodge things like Broadside and Fury. I think I'm just going to trim that. My opening hand has no mana here. My second hand is a little sketch. I think I'll keep it and be unhappy about it rather than mulligan. Alright, Mountain Go is very good for us. That means that I can try to get Dryad Arbor established to lead into other things. But I really would like to draw extra mana here. Little Tree Friend. Here's the Ancient Tomb. There's a Broadside. There's nothing to throw as of right now, so that's good. But this could get bad in another turn if I don't draw a land, which I did not. I think I'm going to try to find another land here. Nope. Okay. I mean, I kept the hand fully knowing that that could happen rather than mulligan to 5. But some portion of the time I just die without deploying Surrak now. 15. Opponent is playing another broadside. They're attacking for 4, which is happening. Why did they deal 3 damage to themselves? Evoked Fury. Well, that's bad. That's the disaster level scenario where I lose both of these creatures, and then my opponent can fling this for 7. Yep. But now, if my opponent likes, they could also fling a broadside here. Put me to 1, which they do. Yeah, so they took 3 damage for no reason. Which, obviously, I am a big fan of. But I now can't pay the life cost on this Dismember. And we just outright lose this one for missing a land drop. This is another hand that does not have the second land drop. So I go Dryad Arbor on 1, and in theory, Dismember and Ignoble Hierarch on 2. I think that's good enough to keep. But it's very awkward if it doesn't pan out. Dryad Arbor. The broadside on turn 2 is so much more manageable than the broadside on turn 1 here. Fury on turn 2 is still a kick in the teeth either way. And I will be holding up Dismember here. I should probably tap that in a slightly different way to leave the forest up rather than the Dryad Arbor. I think that's a mistake on my part. Broadside. Immediate Dismember. Now I will at least get to play a 3-drop here, which is a really big deal. Unless my opponent has post-combat Fury. They do. Fury confirmed good versus Mana Dork deck. I don't have a second Dryad Arbor, so I have to wait on that. And now we just see if my opponent has a Haymaker that will win them the game. That'll certainly do. I drew a land. It is unfortunately an ETB tapped land. At this stage, I don't want that more than just naturally drawing a land. Fable Trigger. Opponent only junking 1 card there. I'll take 2 when my opponent makes this treasure here. Pyrogoyf. I could shrink that with Endurance. There would still be creature and sorcery. I get rid of instant and land. Sure. Obviously not a good use of resources in the traditional sense. I could stack that the opposite way to junk my endurance as well. It doesn't super matter here. Honestly, at this point, I think I'm just going to concede this one. I think I'm just dead to Fable of the Mirrorbreaker copying Pyrogoyf. Like, I can put 1 more mana on board, but I think the following turn cycle, I just don't come back from that. GG's. Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com, and honestly, they're just the best at what they do. If you need to keep your deck lists online, this is the way to do it. They have all sorts of different viewing options. You can condense that text if you like things to be tight. You can make them visual grids. You can put them in stacks. You've got all sorts of different ways to kind of view and visualize your deck lists, and they also have some really cool functionality, like allowing you to see playtest hands and even fully playtest your decks. So check them out. Okay, this is a hand that has plenty of mana, but it is attached to creatures. So if things go wrong, I don't do anything this game. If I either draw a land or these mana dorks live, I'm fine, and I end up with a very big trampoly Surrak with a bunch of exalted triggers. I think I am comfortable keeping this, knowing that sometimes this doesn't work. Oh, don't chalice on 1. This is Fable of the Mirrorbreaker. So we have seen this matchup play out before. We know that I am fine against the aggressive elements this deck has to offer, and I am very bad against Fury because this. So hopefully my opponent does not have Fury. Opponent can do some looting here. Junks a Blood Moon. They can get some mana while dealing me 2. Oh, they're going to lose their City of Traders, but this means something big like a Pyrogoyf or a 1-ring is coming. It's the 1-ring. There is theoretically Collector Oof in the deck to help with this. My issue is fully them drawing Fury and wiping out all of these mana dorks. I think I go ahead and throw this down. This gives me some insulation versus creature-based removal. Gives me a way to potentially draw more lands, get to other big creatures. Then my opponent will take their card end of turn, take 1 in their upkeep, go to 16. And Fable does the Fable thing. Do 1-ring draws. Fuck. Deck weakness of being weak against Fury has been established. This Surrak trigger admittedly helps a ton in recovering from this, but this is not really costing my opponent 2 cards, right? Like, because the One Ring is just giving them so many cards, they don't care about throwing away cards to do this Fury stuff. So I make a land drop. I need more mana to fuel out the things that have a reasonable chance at stalling my opponent's board. But I think it's somewhat likely that my opponent just gets to, like, play Pyroglyph, copy Pyroglyph this turn, and the game effectively ends. Even just Broadside is very bad here. Alright, it's not a soul land, it's just a mountain. Could be worse. From Mox. Thundering Eruption under it. Yeah, so there's Pyroglyph. My opponent kills one of my creatures. They attack with Goblin Shaman token. That gives them another Pyroglyph to kill the next creature. At this point, I'm going to tap out. We're not beating it from here. So we made one small shift last time. I do Thrun out. I did Thrun out for being expensive. Okay. Opening hand is fine. Again, kind of no matter what we do, we are going to have a weakness to Surrak. Or sorry, a weakness to Fury. Because we are a Mana Dork deck. So Fury taking out a Surrak plus a Noble Hierarch at the same time is devastating. Romox. Fable is fine. To decide whether or not I'm going to dismember that token. I was Hex Drinker before. I cut Hex Drinker before. I think I'm going to hold the Dismember and get Surrak into play. Try to pressure my opponent's Ancient Tomb start. Now my opponent gets to loot. So we've got Artifact, Sorcery, Land in graveyard. Pyroglyph already a decent size. God damn it. Why do they always fucking have the Fury? That's very frustrating. Another Surrak is like a fine draw, but I'm going to be so far behind on tempo that I think it's just terminal here. Like, I can't play Surrak and get rid of Fable of the Mirror Breaker at the same time, for example. I'm taking at least 4 here. Might be 6 if my opponent throws the treasure. They don't. Now I'm in this kind of shitty spot where I have to decide whether or not I am killing a Broadside or a Fable of the Mirror Breaker with Dismember. I think the immediacy of answering Broadside is important. And this is where, like, not having the Mana Dorks to play Surrak plus Dismember at the same time is so incredibly relevant. So I'll do a small green sun. Going to, I think, pick up the 2-power Hex Drinker that I normally would have sideboarded out and hold up Dismember for Broadside. Hope my opponent does not have something like a Pyroglyph to copy with Fable afterwards. Duder. That's good. That's real good. So I'll take out the Broadside, so my creatures are more stable. My opponent just fully willing to trade with my Hex Drinker, which I think, given the situation that I'm in, I just accept that trade. Reflection of Kiki-Jiki copying Reflection of Kiki-Jiki a couple turns down the line probably beats me. Yeah, that helps. Does not feel good, though. I think before my opponent can untap with it, I have to just bite the bullet on that. I think the issue here is that by doing this, I put my life total low enough that Pyroglyph to the face starts being horrifying. I don't think I'm going to get to stabilize the board with Undermountain Adventurer and then start swinging back. I think I'm going to die this turn. 4 mana. Pyroglyph? It's another Fury. God damn it. Oh no, it's a Pyroglyph that my opponent overpaid for. That's 6 to face and I die. GG's. Alright. Opening hand is okay. This Hex Drinker is probably a distraction for the stuff that comes a little bit later on. Alright, we are not going to just go and absolutely... I think I made a mistake. Get bodied by Fury this time. I was supposed to play Noble Hierarch pre-combat. Okay. Do I instead now level up Hex Drinker now that I've made the mistake? I think so. I still play Surrak no matter what next turn, and I don't think I need Shifting Ceratops next turn. Surrak being in play first is nice. Ooh, it's Nadu combo. And a Prismatic Ending. Okay. So I can leave up Endurance to specifically try to stop a Cephalid Illusionist-based combo. That doesn't do anything versus Nadu. So I think I am just going to play my most aggressive option and pass the turn. There's the green land for Nadu, unfortunately. Oh, it's Cephalid Illusionist. Okay. Wait, is my Endurance actually going to stop this combo? Yes, it is. So my opponent is going to mill their entire deck and get to the point where they are going to be able to dread return a Thassa's Oracle. And with the dread return on the stack, I can then junk everything. All right, so there we go. There's no Cabal Therapy in this build. All right, so there's Dread Return targeting Thassa's Oracle. So now I will Endurance, Pitching, Noble Hierarch Matter, Malevolent Rumble Matter, maybe Malevolent Rumble. And now the Cephalid Illusionist is gone, so my opponent can't repeat this. If they have a counterspell, they don't. So junk your stuff. Nice. So now I just kind of count on Surrak to do Surrak things, I think. Noble Hierarch. This is going to be punchies for 5 with Exalted. 11. And I'll pass the turn here with Dismember available. Nadu. Let's kill the Nomads here. The Nadu is the better card, but I don't want my opponent getting 4 triggers worth of value. And I'm going to do this playing around Days. I did not look that carefully at my opponent's deck to see whether or not they were playing Days. I should have, but welcome to life when you're recording. My opponent have another Nomads or Shuko? No, luckily for us. Ponder Shuffles, also good for us. This is another Dismember as a draw? Holy shit, that's great. So Surrak attacks as a 5/4. That means I'm not dying to Nadu, so let's get this part out of the way immediately. Dismember, target Nadu. This time I can pay a black and then do one of these from here. Opponent hits a land. Fantastic. And next turn I have a kill with Surrak, and if I hit a land, I also have a kill with Shifting Ceratops. So 2 of my opponent's remaining 3 cards need to be combo pieces here, and they need to be the opposite side combo pieces. And specifically, it also needs to be Nadu, right? Like, with Dread Return gone, Cephalid Illusionist just produces some 1/1 blockers. That's a land. You need 5 mana. Okay, this tramples. Okay. Keen-Eyed Curator. So I attack as a 5/4. My opponent is Hellbent. Okay, I mean, we're getting in there. Send it. Okay. So everybody's going down. Then I don't really care about Narcomoeba stuff happening. So let's just throw out Shifting Ceratops. Maybe if Keen-Eyed Curator is already lethal, I play that out instead. Because this could be haste if my next card is a land, which it was. Alright, so I have decent tools that I can bring in here. Choke is one of my ways to stop my opponent's fair mid-range stuff from mattering if they execute that combo. Pick Your Poison is a thing. It is a removal spell for Nadu, but it is a removal spell for a Nadu that has like already resolved and my opponent has passed the turn. I like Dismember better here. Let's go down on Oof. X-Drinker has some text if things go a very, very specific stalled mid-range game for a long time. I don't think that's going to be the norm. Keen-Eyed Curator has some text versus Cephalid Illusionist. I need 2 cuts here. I could also turn a Mana Dork into Carpet of Flowers here. That might be leaning too much into the island synergies, though, against a 3-color deck that has some number of basics. Let's go down a couple initiative creatures, and let's keep the uncounterable stuff. Sometimes I might be able to brute force my way through a Nadu. Opening hand is okay. I think it's worth keeping, but it's just okay. Ponder. We will just drop a Mana Dork and pass. Opponent is just removing my Mana Dork, which is fine. Sure. If you're going to do both of those, I like doing Ponder first. You know, maximize all of your information for your turn and decide whether or not you still need to remove that Mana Dork afterwards. All Malevolent Rumble here. Reveal? That is a reveal. I can reveal a choke and let my opponent know it's coming, or I can just take the generically good Surrak and try to beat down my opponent with Surrak into Shifting Ceratops. Oh, that's awkward. I think I'm going to take the choke. Sometimes I just pitch this choke to Endurance as an oh shit button when my opponent just plays Nomads and Cephalid Illusionist this turn. Like now my opponent could, for example, fetch a basic Plains and then only 1 land is vulnerable to choke. Shuko, you've got it. Underground Mortuary as the draw. Not what I'm looking for. I still down with choke? I think so. I am much more worried about the combo aspect than I am worried about trying to reduce my opponent's life total to 0 here. This, for example, stops them doing some surveil lands at end of turn. Yeah, so they get basic planes. Urza's Saga. Sure. There is Nadu. My opponent does not have that many creatures right now. There is a Cephalid Illusionist and a Nomad's Encore. So now my opponent can activate this more times. My opponent has multiple lands that can untap and gets a bunch more draws here. The reason that I am continuing to play is that Shifting Ceratops and some of the other cards in my deck are just uncounterable. So I do this, and it doesn't matter if my opponent can activate and just get Force of Will. Alright, so you're going to do your stuff. And after a bunch of Nadu activations, this is where we end up. I think I'm just going to lose. Like, my opponent is at 13, but has double Urza's Saga. I don't technically immediately lose to Cephalid Illusionist hitting play. With Force of Will backing it up, my Endurance doesn't resolve anymore. So my opponent's Cephalid Illusionist now does just kill me. I'm not going to sit here and wait through it. I am done waiting through Nadu combo on this turn once I have figured out that I am usually losing. Alright, now this time around, might approach it a little differently. So now my opponent knows choke is coming and can proactively play around that from the beginning of the game. I don't think I'm going to try to cut off the combo there. And instead, I think I will do Pick Your Poison, which can snipe Urza Saga and Shuko. And then let's assume that initiative is too hotly contested here in this game and get a little more interaction like this. These are reasonable cards, but I don't think enough starting mana. Oh, yikes. We'll go to 5. 5-card hand is totally fine, though. Get rid of that. I think we'll play this on turn 1, trying to hit another land and try to keep both of these. That's mana, we'll take it. I need mana no matter what here. At a massive starting disadvantage, though. This is my play this turn. Cuts off Shuko. But that's not the Noble Hierarch and Dismember that I really would have preferred to do. Again, if you are going to ponder, you can wait on making the land drop until afterwards. What if you hit an Urza Saga and you want to play that as your land for turn, for example? Is it always Noble Hierarch this turn? Yes, I think so. So let's play it pre-combat. And then with Collector Roof for 3. I don't expect this damage to get through, though. Alright, it does. I'll pass here. I'm not going to Green Sun for Dryad Arbor. I think I need to hold up Dismember for Nadu. No removal spell. Opponent fetches is a Cephalid Illusionist instead. And then Nomad's Encore, which my opponent can activate even though Collector Roof stops Shuko. So let's pay some life here. Dismember Cephalid Illusionist. My opponent will get 1 trigger. And then hopefully this resolves and we're good. It doesn't. Pitching Nadu. So now my opponent gets to do the Nomad's Encore Cephalid Illusionist combo. And we are dead to that, unfortunately. GG's. Alright, feel for the future here with some unfortunate news. Round 4 of this video is absolutely not happening. Long story short, there were some audio issues, and I said to myself, it's fine, I'm going to stop recording, and I'll just dub over the replay when this is done. Only to remember that Magic Online replays are currently disabled to help out with some of the client-side lag issues. So, rip. So, you're going to get a summary of what happens. I am playing against a blue-black tempo deck. In game 1, my opponent thought seizes me on turn 1, sees an Endurance, a Dismember, and an Undermountain Adventurer, takes the Undermountain Adventurer. A few turns later, they attack a Murktide Regent into Endurance, and I dismember their Murktide Regent, turning it into a 2-power creature. I end up killing their Murktide Regent, having Endurance, and handily winning the game. Game 2, I never draw land. They win. I don't think I cast any spells. And in game 3, I lock them out under a choke very early on. have the board stabilized for 20 plus turns, and then my opponent draws Orcish Bowmasters on the turn before they are going to time out. And I alluded to this in the intro, but since we've got some time to fill, I'm going to cover this interaction a little more clearly so you understand what is happening in terms of the rules here. So, my opponent plays Orcish Bowmasters and targets Surrak or any other of my creatures. It does not matter. The Orcish Bowmaster trigger is on the stack. Surrak's trigger goes on top of that. So I draw a card. Orcish Bowmaster triggers again, placing a new damage trigger on the stack, and then above that, placing a Surrak card draw. So what ends up happening is there are infinite damage pings to creatures on the stack, but before any of those abilities resolve, you end up drawing your entire deck and killing yourself. If you have a removal spell in your deck, this is theoretically not lethal. You just remove the Orcish Bowmaster after drawing a handful of cards, and it is not a big deal. If, however, just picking a totally random example that did not happen in the final round, if your removal spell is Dismember, and you have it in your hand, but you're at 2 life and only have 1 black source, you can't actually cast that card by exactly 1 life, you will instead die and lose a game where you have multiple chokes in play, a stabilized board, lethal on board, and your opponent is about to time out. So if you need a reason not to play Surrak in Legacy, it is that. Let's proceed to the final round, which is really sweet. All right, final round. We don't have a lot of action here, whereas this is totally fine. I will keep this and pitch one of the excess lands. Let's Noble Hierarch and pass. Mystic Sanctuary tapped. So this is probably going to be real good here. I don't mind that as a draw either. What do I want to do with my mana here? I could just get Hexdrinker and kind of put my opponent to the test immediately, which I don't hate. Let's Green Sun for 1. Grab Hexdrinker, funnel some mana into it. And I probably don't need to be in a hurry against this slower deck. Yeah. We're just going to get protection from instants here, and then protection from everything the following turn. We're fine just dumping all of the mana into this. We would like to dodge Leyline Binding or a similar effect. We'll see if it happens. Got black mana. It's an Uro. Hexdrinker probably going all the way. Misty. Fetch. And Ponder. Yeah, I am going to have a protection from everything Hexdrinker. Sweet. So, yeah. I guess there could be a Solitude, but this very much looks like Bug Beans here. All right. There we go. Protection from everything. 6/6. Which is attacking as a 7/7 due to Exalted. I could get another Mana Dork here to attack as an 8/8. I think this is fine. I think my Green Sun is an Endurance some portion of the time. Also, I just have Fireball on a stick here. All right. There's Uro. My opponent got it into play before I can Endurance it away. This gives my opponent a little extra life to work with, which is nice on their end. And a Surveil land. Big pickup. I'll fetch and Surveil. It's another Shifting Ceratops. Not bad. I'll put that on top. This just walls Uro. They've left a land open instead, potentially. We'll send in for 7. Oh, wait. Fuck. This is pro blue. Oops. My bad there. My opponent gets another turn to live. And there's 2 Shifting Ceratops staring them down. Objectively, very, very clearly a mistake. Doesn't matter. Our start was just crazy versus our opponent. We just put them to the test, like, can you answer Hexdrinker? And the answer was no. This is going to be a slower matchup where Choke shines. Carpet of Flowers is perfectly fine. I will probably turn 2 Mana Dorks into these. Dismember misses Uro. Electro Oof probably not great here either. I guess that means we're playing some number of Pick Your Poison to answer Beans. How many? Or do I just want to play Outland Liberator? What's a new card? Is it Rakshasha's Bargain? Is essentially a 3-mana instant speed draw 2 that triggers up the Beanstalk. I'm going to presume that that is why my opponent wants to be in Bug. Leyline and Pick Your Poison both feel medium to me. I think I'm going to send the deck as is. We probably don't get to do that Hex Drinker trick again. This is a 1-lander, unfortunately. I don't think I get to keep that, even in this slower matchup. We win the long game. Are we risking it on 6 and hoping to draw lands, or do I want to go to 5? I think I'll risk it on 6 and be unhappy about it. Here I probably get rid of an Endurance, and I just bank on drawing lands and making this the game. Surveil land. Opponent junks Wasteland. Fantastic. Let's get this going. Womp. This is another Orcish Bowmaster's deck, so the same Surrak thing that happened last round could potentially happen here. A new Endurance, and we'll drop a 2/2. It walls some Orcish Bowmaster's damage in the short term, but is not a particularly good card. This was something that was filling slots in the deck. 3rd land drop, and it's beans. Does my Outland Liberator make it around the table? It does. So I can answer the Beanstalk. If I do, my opponent wins that exchange, because they can start attacking for 1, and this has already cantripped. I think, however, if I don't, it is just better for my opponent. My opponent wants to settle in for this long game. So, like, I could just pass the turn there. Daze is fine. I can reverse the order of those things to play around that, but my opponent might daze anyway to keep their Beanstalk alive. Yes, that's very good. Hopefully I draw a land for this Endurance and a Ponder. If I don't draw a land for the Endurance, I might need to pitch cast the Endurance to stop Burrow. 17. All right, nice. We'll say that we baited the daze last turn, huh? That's how we'll say this went down in the history books. And I think I am going to try to hardcast it. Nice. Lucked out. Yeah, baiting that daze ended up working out well. I'm not going to say that I baited that. That was not intentional. Getting rid of that daze ended up working out well. Something big. Lorien revealed. Absolutely. Well, did you draw a counterspell? This is dazeable. Oh, shit. Nice. Send it. Send it? I want to take 2 back. Yeah, that's fine. 19. My opponent still has some lands that untap, but this is a really big deal. I don't know how many Abrupt Decay, Assassin's Trophy type cards they're rocking over there. Underground Sea, sure. I take 2 back. Nice. Send it. 16. I'm going to pass the turn. And I'm honestly going to cast this in their upkeep before they have a chance to draw another card that could be Force of Will that gets them deeper into their deck. All right, resolves. Keep that graveyard nice and empty. 3 black mana. Murderous Cut. Interesting. Sure. Delta. I take 2 back. If my life total gets a little lower, I might need to pump the brakes here. There's a Hierarch. Like, do I just pump the brakes this turn and assume that Shifting Ceratops gets the job done? If I don't die to this chip damage? Yeah, that seems fine. Let's pump the brakes. I am not really the beatdown in the short term, but I am absolutely the beatdown as soon as I draw another land. But, like, this mana dork could die. I could miss on lands for a few turns. There's stuff that can happen. Sure. And another Bowmaster. Sure. Yeah, this is still losable if I just miss out on mana. I didn't. So this is uncounterable. My opponent has blown multiple Fatal Pushes at this point. Or I guess they've gone back into deck. Opponent's doing a pretty good job of playing Magic under choke, though. Dryad Arbor. You got it. Play a Shifting Ceratops. I think I'll go ahead and send 1 in this turn. All right, opponent is down to 10. Doing a bargain. Yeah, there it is. Rakshasha's Bargain. Look at top 4, put 2 into your hand, the rest into your graveyard. Very, very good value with Up the Beanstalk. Note that Shifting Ceratops can gain Trample. Wasteland. Another Up the Beanstalk. An opponent is passing the turn. If I Shifting Ceratops with haste, my opponent has to block 2 of them. Otherwise, I can attack with 2 of them and trample in. My opponent could trade for 1 and then Fatal Push 1 away. Am I playing around a Toxic Deluge? Probably not. Oh yeah. Okay, that was enough. So we managed to put a match win on the board in the final round, but this was a rough showing for this deck. Alright, we're at the end of the league here. Overall thoughts on the deck list. I would make some small changes before I played this again. I would probably go up a land or 2 here. In doing some initial goldfishing with the deck, I was totally fine on the mana count. But the thing about goldfishing is it doesn't account for shit like Fury that is just going to happen in games. And the reality of the situation was that while I would often keep hands with like 2 lands and a mana dork, I was often losing out on those things before I got to the higher cost spells in my deck. So if I was going to run this again, I would probably run it around 22 lands. But I'm not sure that I want to run it again. Let's do a quick check on percentage of Orcish Bowmaster in the format and percentage of Fury in the format. I care about both of those numbers. Ballpark numbers, we're not going to trust these too much because the format is still very new. So ballpark numbers, Orcish Bowmasters is the 4th most played creature in Legacy at about 25% of the format. Fury is the 12th most played creature at 14% of the format. So ballpark, 40% of the time you are either going to play against Fury or Bowmasters, both of which absolutely brutalize your deck. So if I was going to play this again, I would probably shift off the mana dorks given where the format looks to be going, and try to play this as an Ancient Tomb Stompy deck. I am unsure if the payoff for doing so is good enough. Like, is turn 1 Surrak actually game-winning in the same way that, like, turn 1 Fable or Broadside often is from a red Stompy deck? I'm not sure that it is. It is a perfectly reasonable Magic the Gathering card that looks like it should be very, very powerful. But the fact that you auto-lose to Bowmasters is real bad. The fact that Fury can take out your mana dork that you use to accelerate into Surrak while also taking out the Surrak is real bad. Even if you draw 2 cards to compensate, the tempo loss is absolutely massive, and the card advantage you gain from doing that doesn't matter so much. I don't know that mono green Stompy is enough payoff to want to do a deck that looks like this. Obviously, if we keep playing against things like Beans like we did in the last round, where they are slow and grindy and stopping their counter spells is a really big deal, that's going to look good. But like that is going to be a 2 to 4 Bowmaster deck as well. And it's not like you can just not play the Surraks in those matchups, right? Like it is still a key part of the plan. I think you need it. What if you go into multiple colors? What if you play like red green initiative? Would you even want Surrak in that? I'm not sure that you would. I think you would just want to keep jamming threats that are scarier than Surrak on their own. Like you get Minsk and Boo, you get at least 8 initiative creatures. You can play the One Ring if you want. Despite the fact that I am, in theory excited about this card, I think the reality of this card is that while this might be a very good anti-control card in a format like Standard, I am not sure that this gets to hang in Legacy. Choke stole some games today. Choke was perfectly good today. Endurance looked good. We did some initiative things. We did some Shifting Ceratops things. Some of the cards here didn't shine. Malevolent Rumble wasn't the best today either. I think we chalk this one up to a failed experiment. I also tried to squeeze 2 Surveil lands into the mana base because I thought there would be a lot of turns where we would be taking a turn off and we would have like this awkward gap in our mana. So I wanted to squeeze in 2 of those. Maybe you don't get away with that because you just need that last land to enter untapped for Shifting Ceratop purposes, but I definitely use them today. So Brewers of the World, get in there, do your own thing, funnel your mana into Hex Drinker. That was pretty cool, at least. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of the day, and if you need some cards, you know where to go. See ya!